Boundaries signifies a level of trust that you have for yourself as a person. It is really hard to have to come up with a solution to a problem that you don't know is there, or a problem that you don't know how to fix, or a problem that you may even be in the now of. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Chill Chat conversation. The last time we talked about boundaries, how to set boundaries, why to set boundaries, how to keep your boundaries, and how to not compromise on your boundaries. So from that conversation, I have been thinking a lot about where to go from boundaries. And I was able to realize that boundaries, as I stated in the videos before, boundaries signifies a level of trust that you have for yourself as a person. And so with that concept in mind, I wanted to talk to you guys today about transparency. How well do you know yourself? It is really hard to have to come up with a solution to a problem that you don't know is there, or a problem that you don't know how to fix, or a problem that you may even be in the now of. And oftentimes breaking of boundaries or the compromising of boundaries happen when a person doesn't fully understand who they are, they don't understand what they want, they don't understand the goals that they have for themselves, where they're going in life, and the roads that they don't necessarily want to go down in life. So without knowing who you are as an individual person and knowing kind of like your direction, the direction that your life is going to take, or the direction that you want your life to take, it is going to be very hard for you to be able to set those boundaries in place and be able to keep those boundaries. Because one thing about boundaries is, like I said, once you set a boundary, once you establish a boundary, you have to be able to follow through with the boundary. So in order to follow through with the boundary, you have to put certain goals in place to how you're actually going to be able to follow through with that boundary. You know, you can't just say, I'm going to set a boundary, and then the next day it's like, okay, boundary set, I'm going to do whatever. You know, I'm going to just say whatever I feel. I'm going to let people know how I feel. They're going to treat me this kind of way. And blah, blah. Like, boundaries is not like that. I mean, it can end up like that, but boundaries, like I said, is just a way that you are going to protect yourself as an individual, and you're going to protect those who come in contact with you. So when you are examining the things that you need, for one, in order to know what you need, you have to be able to know yourself as a person. These are some things that Vanessa needs. I know that I need quality time. I know that I need words of affirmation. I know that I need to be working or be doing something with my hands. I know that I like shopping. I know that I like doing hair. You know, you have to be able to know some of the things that you like in order for you to be able to set proper boundaries for and actual proper goals for. So, and that goes back to the values that you have in life. A lot of things that, I mean, sometimes we have habits and things like that we stand firm on, you know, and at times even those habits are the very things that we're wanting to change within ourselves. But even with that, whatever you value is what you want to give your attention to. So if you value the boundaries that you're getting ready to set, or if you value the needs that you have, it is going to be easier for you to be able to establish a boundary for it and then set some goals to actually make sure that that boundary stays set, so you don't have to compromise all the time. Once you have been able to establish what you need, as an individual person. Now you can go to the next step and start figuring out, okay, what boundary do I need to set for that particular need that I have? And once you set the boundary, a potential boundary that it could be, that's when you start to then go to the next step and you start to process through, okay, what are some things that I have to do individually, and what are some things that I have to hold the other person accountable for my boundary to actually be as valuable to them as it is to me. Remember we said before, if you compromise on your boundaries, then that person, whoever you're expecting to actually value your boundary, is not going to really care, because it's going to be quite obvious that you don't care about your boundaries yourself. So you have to make sure you are being firm in the boundaries that you are setting, but also that you are being firm that you are setting those boundaries for yourself. So you have to put some goals in place. You have to put some goals in place for the boundaries that you want to set. After that, then it comes to, okay, now I have a need, I have a boundary, a potential boundary that I'm going to set. I am setting the goals, and now I have to think about what is going to be the consequence, or what is going to happen once someone crosses my boundary. And that sometimes is hard, because it's hard for one to set a boundary, especially if it's something that you've been doing for a long time. It is really hard to set a boundary, but it's even harder to be in the position to where you actually have to make someone follow your boundary. It's a little awkward, it's a little weird, but I mean, if it's important to you, then you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable at times, because that's what it's going to require. And so those are the steps that you would take. But after that, what I want to talk about today, well, do you really know yourself, is we have to also think about the other side of the coin as being, what are some boundaries that I have to set for myself? We have to talk about ourselves first. And that's why I wanted to bring about this video, because once I went through and listened to the other video, I was just like, yeah, that's all good and well. I said, but I'm missing the main concept. I said, I'm missing the concept of us. Like, how well do we know us to be able to know what we need to establish for someone else? So I want to talk about us today. Like, how well do you know yourself in general? Like, how well do you know the needs that you have? How well do you know your plans that you're trying to put in place? We're all coming up on a new year. This is the time for people to start putting in their resolutions, or making life changes, or at least considering making those changes. If you don't know who you are and where you're going, you're not going to be able to effectively do to make the list. You may get away with actually making the resolution list, but you're not going to get far on it. And that's literally the reason why a lot of people, they start New Year's resolution, and by February it's like, bye Felicia, because no one is actually setting the boundaries for themselves to be able to really accomplish those goals that they are trying to set. So if I know I'm currently now getting my master's degree, I know that if I want to effectively, because it's all online, it's really hard for me to try to teach myself this, but I'm going to roll with it anyway. I know within myself that I have to set aside extra time to do studying, for me to actually comprehend, not just get a grade, but for me to actually comprehend what I'm supposed to be being taught. If I don't set goals in place as far as my scheduling, having a daily routine, I will fail. And that's just what it is. I have to be self-aware within myself enough to say, at a certain time, past a certain time, I'm not going to be able to focus and look at a computer screen, because for one, I've worked all day and I looked at the computer screen there. And so for me to have to go home, I know that if I got lazy when I went home, my chances of finishing my schoolwork by the end of the night and being able to spend time with anyone else besides work and school, then I have to build myself a schedule. And even as I establish my schedule, I have to hold myself accountable for it. I have to set some boundaries in place for me to make sure I keep that schedule. So for example, a goal that I would have, unless I have a headache or I'm not feeling well, when I come home, I usually jump right on my schoolwork, so I have a little bit of time before the end of the night is over for me time or just spending time with others, you know, I have to be able to set aside some time outside of work and school. But I can't properly do that and get everything done if I don't put myself on a schedule. I have to create boundaries for myself, you know. So I also had to create a boundary at the beginning. I was setting up all kind of hours because I haven't really established my schedule yet. You know, I didn't really establish a daily routine. So I had to set some boundaries on my bedtime. Like, I already had a bedtime. I put myself on bedtime a long time ago. 10:30, 11 o'clock, Vanessa's in bed. Unless I don't have to work till 12 and I'll stay up late. But Vanessa, she puts herself on a little schedule, and I am in the bed by 10:30, and I'm trying to fall asleep by 11 o'clock. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I was going well beyond my actual daily routine from even starting school. And I was staying up later, and I was, you know, getting tired. I mean, of course, some of that excitement kicked in. Oh my gosh, I'm in school, blah, blah. But after that wore off, I was like, oh no, we're going to have to do something different. I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to have to do something different because Vanessa not getting no sleep is not a good thing. So I had to literally establish a boundary for my bedtime. And like I said, this is not popular conversations. No one wants to talk about this kind of stuff. It's just like everybody wants to just go through their days, you know, doing whatever they want, and then they're looking up at the end of the night and they're wondering why they're not being productive or why they feel like they don't have enough time in the world. They're feeling like, you know, they just don't have time. I hear all the time, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I run out of time for this. I run out of time for that. And I love to get my clients on because I say, what did you do all day? How long did you stay up on your phone last night? You know, and even as adults, you know, we get on them phones, we watch TV, you know, and we're up all hours of the night doing all these things. And we wake up the next day feeling restless. We don't get any sleep. We still haven't got anything accomplished. And it's really because we are not checking in with ourselves. And we are not asking ourselves what we really need, what we need to accomplish, what goals we need to set, where are we going, even if it's just for today. What does my future hold for today? What does my future hold for tomorrow? What does my future hold for next week and next month? Now, there are times you have to stay in the moment. You have to practice that mindfulness. You have to be mindful of just you in that moment. But sometimes it is required for you to think outside of that moment, because if you keep procrastinating, which is what a lot of us do, we want to put a boundary in place, but then we'll procrastinate, and then we'll say the boundary is not working. And then I'll have to say to that, well, how well did you know yourself when you set that boundary? Because if you're going to set a boundary that's going to contradict your schedule, then you're literally pinning yourself against yourself. If you can say wholeheartedly that my schedule is like this and it works for me, for you to try to set a boundary outside of that original schedule, you're going to fail. That's just what it is. If you know that your children has to be up at 6 o'clock, and you're going to say, oh, I need some self-care, I need some time for me, I'm going to get up at 5:30 knowing that you need an hour. And so you get up at 5:30 and you know you need an hour. You know your kids is getting up at 6 o'clock. You didn't just you literally just went against your own self, and you're going to fail at that. So you have to be able to be mindful of, again, what you need, why you need it, the boundaries that you want to establish for it, the goals that you need to meet those boundaries, and then move on from there. Like, you have to know yourself. The more self-aware you are of yourself, the more you can give to other people. And that's just in general, whether it be time, whether it be energy, whether it be money, whatever it is that you're giving. If you don't know your situation, you will find yourself in a bind. If you don't know your situation too, you will not be able to keep your boundaries. If I know that I have $500, and I have a friend that calls me and say, hey, can I borrow $100? If you already looked at what you needed and you establish your boundary, and you have someone who calls you and randomly asks for something, and you already have that set, and if you don't have it to spare, then you know you're going to be in trouble. I mean, you're going against yourself. You're going to put your own self in a predicament for failure. And that's not what boundaries does. Boundaries is supposed to do the opposite. You knowing yourself before you set those boundaries is going to cause the opposite effect. It's not going to ripple effect into the negative. It's going to ripple effect to the positive. If you know what you need, and you're setting the boundaries for it, you're setting the goals for it, and you're not compromising on it, when you don't need to compromise on it, you will find yourself in a position of way more peace, self-confidence, and you will be more aware of yourself. Knowing yourself is being aware of yourself. Who am I, individual person? What do I need? What boundaries do I need to put in place? What goals do I need to establish those boundaries? And how do I move on from there, not to be able to compromise on my boundaries? I don't want to be a compromising person. I don't want to be known as the compromise. When there are times I need to compromise, I want to be able to compromise in those times, but not be known as the compromiser. If you are known as a compromiser, that means that the perspective that people have on you is that you are like water. You sway back and forth. There is no stability in you. And I know that when you say something, I cannot count on what you say. So therefore, I can manipulate you in any way that I can. I don't want to be known as a compromiser. That's not the status I want. I want someone to know that when they're dealing with Renessa, they're dealing wholeheartedly with Renessa, and they can't just come and sway Renessa any kind of way. But if you don't know yourself, that is what's going to happen. That's what happened to me when I did not know myself for years. When I did not know myself, I had people come in my life, mess it all up, peace out, and I'm the one that was struggling. And until I got somewhat of a backbone, still building a backbone. You know, once I got somewhat of a backbone, I was able to say, okay, I at least know me well enough to know I don't like that. Or I know me well enough to say, oh, I like that. Okay, let's give me some more of that. Let's roll with that. You know, you have to be able to know yourself to a certain extent to be able to say, hey, I am me. I know me well enough to know I need this. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to accept that. I can add that. That needs to be taken away. That needs to be changed. That needs to be left the same. Because what you're going to do if you don't know that, you're going to let someone come in, persuade you to be someone that you're not, which happens very often. We are walking around not as our own individual selves. We're walking around as other people, mimicking other people. We are literally walking with under the persuasion of what someone expects us to be, because they are setting our boundaries for us. They're setting our goals for us, and they're setting our life paths for us. And then we wake up one day and we're shocked, and we're like, oh my gosh, my life didn't go anywhere. And you're correct. And that's hard to accept. That's hard to acknowledge sometimes. And it's hard to just be real and take accountability. Like, you know, I've let someone else control me in that way. I did not know myself well enough to be able to effectively go after what I needed. And that unfortunately comes with setting boundaries, guys. If we don't understand how to set boundaries for ourselves, if we don't understand how to really start to get to know ourselves, we are going to be stuck. And this is why I love the Chill Chat channel, because I love talking about those things that no one wants to talk about. I love talking to myself about it. So I just wanted to be able to share it with the world. Like, I've had these conversations with myself. Like, Renessa, who are you? And why are you allowing this in your life? Why are you allowing that in your life? Why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? Like, I've had to literally question myself. Like really get down with Renessa and ask Renessa some questions, because Renessa was accepting a lot of things in her life that she shouldn't have been accepting. And that's just to be honest. And it was because I had a lot of I didn't have any self-esteem. I didn't have any self-confidence. I had my spirituality. And that was so precious to me, and it still is. Don't get me wrong, it still is. But I had to come into the understanding that I had to know me on a common sense level, if I want to say it that way. I had to know me, you know, outside of that as well, because I found out that I was so gullible naturally, in the natural realm, just living. Because my mind was just in the spiritual. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that there's a lot of things, a lot of encounters that I have come across that per se I don't think would have happened if I was more mindful of myself naturally, instead of being always stuck just in the spiritual realm. I want to say that very carefully, because spirituality is literally what has guided me through my life. It is why I'm literally where I am today. Like, my love for God is beyond what I could ever experience in the natural. I will say that most definitely. But I had to learn that there was more to me, and I And I had to learn what that other part was for me to be able to wrap it all back around and be a whole individual. Like I will put it this way, I can see now that and I'm not saying that you have to have personal experiences, you know, for you to be able to know anything. I'm not saying that at all. But for me, in the direction that my life has taken and the career that God has chosen for me, I'm starting to see now some of the things that I went through in the natural, and how it's beneficial to the women that I'm working with now. I wouldn't have had that level of understanding if I did not get to know myself on the natural level as well. And I say that lightly too, because that's not to say, you know, sin is sin. You know, if you're doing something outside of what you believe you're doing, you know, that's not healthy. You know, so I'm not condoning that at all. But I do think that things work for the good. And there's some situations I put myself in, you know, that God didn't have anything to do with. I chose to be disobedient, or I chose to do this or whatever, and I put myself in those positions. But I do believe that that God has given me some insight of myself and those who I'm working with, simply because of the things that I went through. But I had to go through that process to be able to get to know Renessa in another way that I didn't know her before. Yes, I refer to myself in the third person because. But I really had to get to know me, and I'm still learning me. And I want you guys to be able to learn you too. And I want you guys to be able to start setting boundaries for yourselves. But in order for you to be able to do that, you have to come into an understanding of who you are and the things that you need. So I'm going to end the video right here, and I hope that I have said something to encourage you to look further beyond the things that you know currently about yourself. Go a little bit deeper, really start to explore you as an individual. And until next time, I pray that you have a blessed day.